We are going to study chapter 10, and the name of the chapter is Ascension of Jesus. The Bible portions for this chapter are given in St. Luke chapter 24 verses 44 to 53, St. Matthew chapter 28 verses 16 to 20, St. Mark chapter 16 verses 19 to 20, Acts chapter 1 verses 1 to 11. We all know that Jesus resurrected from death and he remained with his disciples for 40 days. He also cleared all the doubts of their disciples, and he also brought them back to the mission that was assigned to them. We have already learned how Jesus readmitted Peter into the pack of the 12 disciples. We have also learned how Jesus cleared all the doubts of St. Thomas and allowed him to touch his wounds. So the disciples were now confirmed in their faith. They were already strengthened and they were sure about the mission that was assigned to them. They were free from fear, from disappointment, and they were already strengthened in faith. Soon after this, Jesus' ascension took place. Jesus' ascension to his Father in heaven. So how did this happen? And we are going to study that in this chapter. So what do you mean by ascension? Ascension shows the end of the period when Jesus Christ was physically present with his disciples before entering into the heavenly glory. Therefore, Christ's disciples and the church had to live in complete expectation of his second coming. So the passage goes like this, that Jesus gathered his disciples on Mount Olive, and Mount Olive was a day's journey away from Jerusalem. They sat together and Jesus told them that these are the very things that I told you about while I was still with you. All of this was written in the law of Moses, the writings of the prophets, and the Psalms. All of this had to come true. Jesus said, and he meant, that he died on the cross, rose back to life on the third day, he resurrected, and now he is with the disciples. All of this was already mentioned in the scriptures, and that is why all of this happened. Jesus asked his disciples to wait in the city for a little more while, because the promise of the Father had still to be fulfilled. And what was the promise that Jesus was talking about? Jesus was talking about the promise which he had already made with the disciples, that the disciples would be baptized. And this time the disciples would be baptized with the Holy Spirit. And therefore he says that I myself will send upon you what my Father has promised. But you must wait in the city until the power from above comes down upon you. St. Luke chapter 24 verses 49. The same incident has already been taken place in our lives. We all have also been baptized, and at the time of baptism we also were anointed with the Holy Spirit, just like the disciples were. As Jesus was talking to his disciples, the apostles asked Jesus, Lord, will you at this time give the kingdom back to Israel? But Jesus said to them, the times and occasions are set by my Father's own authority, and it is not for you to know when they will be. But when the Holy Spirit comes upon you, you will be filled with power, and you will be witnesses for me in Jerusalem, in all Judea and Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. So by this Jesus meant that as soon as the disciples receive the Holy Spirit, they will bear witness to Christ in all the places of Jerusalem, in all of Judea, Samaria, and also to the ends of this earth. So while Jesus was telling this to the apostles, soon after he had completed Saying this, he was taken up to heaven as they watched him, and a cloud hid him from their sight. They still had their eyes fixed on the sky as he was going away. Soon after this, they saw that two men, dressed in white, suddenly stood beside them. And they said to the apostles, "Galileans, why are you standing there looking up at the sky? This Jesus who was taken from you into heaven will come back in the same way that you saw him go to heaven." So, in short, these angels who were talking to the apostles, they assured the apostles that the way Jesus has been taken up to heaven, in the same way he will come back. But till then, what are you supposed to do? You are supposed to complete the mission, what Jesus has given to you. Thereafter, we see that the apostles are very happy and they are filled with great joy because they had witnessed something which brought them a lot of joy in their lives, and they were ready for the mission that was assigned to them. Just like the disciples wait eagerly for the second coming of Jesus Christ, similarly, we all wait for the glorious second coming of Jesus Christ. Similarly, just as the disciples were aware of the mission that was entrusted to them, at the same time, we have also been given this responsibility, and we are also entrusted with the same mission of bearing witness to Jesus Christ. Just like the disciples, we also eagerly wait for the second coming of Christ, and we also are getting strengthened with the power from God. And who empowers us? The Holy Spirit empowers us. This strength which gives us values is provided by the Holy Church to us through the anointment with holy chrism. While Jesus was entrusting the mission to his disciples, he raised his hands and he blessed them. While doing this, he was also fulfilling a priestly function. Jesus Christ directed his disciples to await for the strength that will be given to them by the Spirit of God. He also promised them that he would be them, although he is going to his Father, but he will always be with the disciples every day till the end of the world. The ascension of Jesus Christ did not disappoint the disciples at all, because they knew that the Christ was always with them. Instead, they returned to Jerusalem to wait for the promise of Jesus. And what was the promise of Jesus? That they will be filled with the Holy Spirit. The appearance and the presence of Christ blessed them thoroughly at the time of ascension. This also strengthened the disciples who bore witnesses to Christ. They were even more joyful, and they were joyful to suffer, and they wanted to suffer for the sake of the Master. Ascension of Jesus Christ marks a very vital role in our lives as well. We need to note that the cross that is placed at the left side of the altar on Easter is removed on this day. This is to be remembered. Being Malankara Orthodox Christians, Ascension of Jesus Christ plays a very important role in our lives, and we need to remember these things. Just as the disciples bore witness to Christ, we also need to endeavor to live as Christ's witnesses. And the first step towards becoming Christ's witnesses is to analyze and to manifest the fruits of the Holy Spirit into our lives. The fruits of the Holy Spirit have been mentioned in Galatians chapter 5 verses 22 to 23. We need to understand that the Spirit produces love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, humility, and self-control. The day we start understanding these fruits of the Holy Spirit and analyzing it and manifesting it into our lives, we will bear witnesses to Christ, and we will become the complete followers of Christ, just as the disciples were.